Okay, how to choose boxing gloves for your boxercise class or your boxing fitness class. I'm going to drop a few hints here, and also I'm going to let you in a little bit of a secret right at the very end of this. So I'm going to talk fast so I don't bore the pants off you. First thing, bag mitts. Bag mitts are the kind of thing, they look like an oven glove, but with a thumb stitched on, and usually in leather or PU. Now, a bag mitt is ideal for a fitness class, and the reason for that is they're cheaper than buying a sparring glove. A sparring glove looks like this. It looks more like a boxing glove, what you imagine a boxing glove to look like. Important thing to bear in mind with any equipment is the equipment will not prevent an injury if you do something technically wrong or unsafe. If your thumb is inside your hand or if your wrist is not straight when you punch, you're going to get injured no matter what you're wearing. It'll help to protect you a bit, but it's not going to prevent the injury. So only good technique prevents the injury. Remember that. It's very important. Okay, different types of gloves. Firstly, you've got a bag mitt. Now, a bag mitt, can you see on this that the thumb is loose here? Now, people often wonder, where does my thumb go when I'm punching? Does it go underneath or to the side? Well, in a boxing glove, you have no choice. It goes to the side like this. It has some Velcro here usually. Now, these, believe it or not, are actually not for wrist support. They are so that when you put them together, I know these are different colours, but just pretend you have a left and a right together, so you don't have to go hunting around in the box to find them. So it's actually not for support, and don't treat it as being support because it won't help you. You should use bandages for that. Do you notice on this that this has stitching here, like that? Now this can't be used for sparring for that reason, because these stitches would cut someone if you punched them. Same thing here on a Rexine glove. There are different types of glove. There are different polyurethanes. This is Rexine, which is very tough. You can also get polyurethane, which is not. You know PU, because if you put your fingers into it, you can just rip it apart. If you've seen our previous video on the focus pads, you'll know how quickly I was able to pull that apart using just one finger. So they're different materials. These are cheaper, these are more expensive. PU and Rexine does not stretch when you punch. So when you punch, then the leather is able to stretch to accommodate your hands. It's much stronger, it lasts a lot longer. So really, for classes, I would recommend leather bag mitts. For home use, these are great. PU ones, they're fine, no problem. So choose quite carefully what you're going to do. Now, these come in different sizes: small, medium, large, extra large. Bear in mind, when you put your hands into these, they don't need to be tight, because your wrist keeping straight is what's going to protect you from being injured. So you better go for a larger size than a smaller size. And remember, if you bandage your hands, it makes your hands bigger. Now that's easy enough getting your first glove on, but when you get your second one on, that can be a bit of a pain. So just be careful when you're doing this, that you choose a size of gloves that you can get your hands into with bandages on. Right, let's look now and compare that to a sparring glove. Here is a sparring glove. Now, sparring is the activity of hitting another person, practicing hitting another person, practice fighting if you like. You cannot use them for that at all. You can hit a pad with these, you can hit a bag with these, you can hit most things with these, but you must never ever hit a person with these. These can be used for bag work, pad work, sparring, anything. You can use them for anything, but they are more expensive. There's a lot more work goes into them. Have a look at the difference between the two. Can you see there is no stitching here? Now, there's no stitching here, which means that it's not going to cut someone's eye like that. The thumb is stitched in. Since about 1988, all boxing gloves must have a stitched in thumb here. This prevents me sticking my thumb into my opponent's eye and causing a detached retina. It's very important. These should be smooth as well. If they're rough, you shouldn't be using them because you will cut your opponent. Now, there are different types of gloves. You can get lace up and you can get Velcro. These ones are Velcro because they're quicker to get on. Now, as a bit of advice for you, if you are doing personal training, you should be using this type of glove, a sparring glove, because when people come to your session, they don't expect to see something that looks like an oven glove, like a bag mitt. They expect to see something that looks like a boxing glove. 9 out of 10 of them will buy their own gloves anyway. But if you're looking to add value to a session, you're only devaluing yourself if you're using a smelly old pair of bag mitts. coming to the subject of smell, and there is a group on Facebook for our long-term smell test, as we've been testing what makes gloves smell bad or worse. The reason that these will smell less than a bag mitt is this. Can you see inside of that? That has got satin on both sides. Now the satin doesn't smell as bad as this. In here, because these are made a bit cheaper, can you see it's got satin here and it's got leather here? It's this bit that smells. That's the bit. So bag mitts will always smell worse than sparring gloves, always, always. So just accept the fact that they're going to do that. Our long-term test said that there were several things that worked particularly well. Bandages work incredibly well, but nothing beats antibacterial hand stuff. Put that on before you use your gloves every time, and it will keep your gloves smelling pretty fresh for about a year. Now let's look at different types of sparring glove. We have here a Rexine, or PU it's often called. Rexine is a material that has strengthening fibres that run through it, so it's much stronger than polyurethane. Make sure you ask the manufacturer if it's Rexine or if it is in fact PU, because Rexine's better. This is leather. Leather is more expensive, obviously, but leather will last you longer. So you can see the difference between the two of these things there. The structure is pretty much exactly the same. It's only the material that varies. So it's a place that you can actually save some money on. If you don't have a lot of money, you can get PU sparring gloves. Now, let's talk about the weight of them. I'm going to put this one down now and pick up a 16-ounce glove. Now, you can see these don't come in different sizes like small, medium, large. They come in different weights. Now, a contest glove can be 8 ounce, it can be 10 ounces, depending on the weight of the fighter. When we spar, we use bigger, heavier gloves. Now, the reason for that is that, can you see this one's a bit bigger? It's got a bigger profile than this. It's harder for that to come through a gap. And also, it has more padding if it's heavier. And also, most importantly, it slows my punches down because it is heavier. So, for fitness, for personal training, for pad work, bag work, really you should be using something around about a 10 to a 12. That's a perfect weight for that. If you're sparring full on, full tilt, or if you're hitting a heavy bag, flat out, you're going to be better with a 16. And if you are boxing, always show your gloves to the coach, because the coach may not approve certain weights of gloves. If you came to my club and you had a set of 8-ounce gloves on your hand and you were going sparring, then no, you're not sparring. You need something like a 14 or a 16 for that. So just be aware of that when you're doing this. So there are different weights of gloves as well. Let me show you one that's a child's glove. Again, another difference. A child's glove is very much smaller. I can see this, that one, yeah, it's got a dinosaur on because dinosaurs are popular with kids. This is a 6-ounce size. The key to this, and this is the most important thing, when we look at this glove, this is my hand there. Distance from here to here has to be the same as from here to here, otherwise it's not going to fit particularly well. Now the problem is when a child puts a hand in, they'd be in this position because they've got a smaller hand. So with a child's glove, we make sure that this is smaller, that it fits the child's hand size. Like I said, only good technique prevents an injury. And you must be punching like this. If your hand is in this position, it's going to roll over and you get injured. And we don't want that to happen, especially with children, because 80% of the growth in the radius and ulna is done at this end. We don't want it getting broken. So protect like that. Make sure you choose the correct sizing of gloves for them. Now I'm also going to let you into a little secret. I don't use our gloves myself. This is a strange thing to say, but I don't. The ones I use are actually these Cleto raised gloves. The reason is that they have a more dense padding. They're very, very, very hard wearing. And I use these. There's just one slight disadvantage. Whereas these things are 30 quid. These things are 220 quid. So there's a bit of a difference. It depends how hard you hit and what you're using it for. Sometimes it is worth paying that bit more to do it. My gloves are lace-ups. There you can see these are lace-up and Velcro, which allows me to make that fit the shape of my forearm that much better. So it works that a little bit better for me. They've got all sorts of padding in here, so it is a completely it's a completely different glove. It has a very different profile as well. Gives my opponent a bit more of a chance to block that shot. Can you see it's a narrower shot, but it's also wider, so it's easier for them to block that shot. So different things, horses for courses. Either way, the choice is yours, whatever choice you make when you're buying your boxing gloves. But just be careful that you don't go wasting your money. Don't buy something really, really cheap from Sports Direct, which are rubbish. But then probably, unless you're really specialist, you really don't need to go buying something like this. But if you do, then if you are a big puncher, then something like this is going to serve you well. I hope that's helped you guys, and that you can make good choices when you're buying your boxing equipment. Good luck.